Alexander. Let me first say to Foreign Minister Schallenberg that I fully share his sentiments and assessment of the state of our relations. Let me also thank you for inviting us to the iconic New Year's concert of the Vienna Philharmonic yesterday. I can't think of a more enjoyable and optimistic way of beginning the new year. It is, of course, an event that is followed throughout the world, but in a way, it is also an occasion for us to express our cultures and respect our cultures. And so certainly there was a strong element of enjoyment, but also a symbolism to my presence yesterday. I was privileged yesterday to meet President Alexander van der Bellen on that occasion. I would like to thank Chancellor Karl Nehammer for receiving me yesterday afternoon. Our extensive conversation yesterday was very valuable in understanding Austria's viewpoint, both about our relationship as well as on current global issues. Today, our discussions took that forward in terms of very detailed consideration of various aspects of our relationship. Let me underline that we view Austria as a serious and consequential partner when it comes to bilateral cooperation. You have experiences and capabilities that are relevant to India's modernization and progress. These are guided by government policies, but ultimately implemented through business transactions. Our commitment today is to take both aspects forward in tandem, and I look forward to concrete initiatives in that regard. We have currently a trade turnover of approximately $2.5 billion. More than 150 Austrian companies are present in India. We would like those numbers also to grow more substantially. Our understanding is that this endeavor will be pursued through government-encouraged business-led meetings in the course of this year. I'm glad to note that India's presence in the Austrian economy has also grown substantially. This is particularly so in the digital and auto industries. There is, again, scope to grow more here. And the bottom line is really that in the manufacturing domain, the post-COVID world is seeking greater resilience and reliability of supply chains. Similarly, the digital world is putting a greater emphasis on trust and transparency, and we believe that India is part of both solutions. With you, Minister, and with the Chancellor, I had an occasion to talk about the relevance of Make in India and to access the Indian market. I assure you that we will support Austrian companies who step forward in that regard. As I understand, there are many Austrian companies who can more actively contribute to our national priorities. Similarly, our enterprises too can generate value and employment when located in Austria. Our responsibility as ministers is to make sure that such partnerships happen. I shared with Chancellor Nehammer yesterday and with Foreign Minister Schallenberg today the transformative changes underway in India. In particular, I highlighted the digital delivery for development and the green growth of the economy, as well as the advancements in health security. We welcome partnerships that help us take these objectives forward. We have today concluded a number of agreements, and you heard from the Foreign Minister in that regard. And I think a particularly noteworthy one is the initialing of the Comprehensive Migration and Mobility Partnership Agreement, because it will enable demands for skills and talents to be synchronized with their availability. Similar agreements have been recently concluded by India with Germany, France, Portugal, UK, and Denmark, amongst others. It will help us to cooperatively expand our economic opportunities and meet the requirements of the global knowledge economy. Let me also be clear that as a country that seeks to utilize the global workplace to the fullest advantage, India is a strong votary of legal migration and mobility. Irregular movement not only enhances the vulnerability of the people involved, but is inherently exploitative. We want a fair, legal, and equal opportunity to demonstrate the contributions of Indian skills and talent. We have also today had open and productive discussions on a range of regional and global situations. By and large, I would say our approaches are similar, though obviously we are located in different regions and we have our particular compulsions. I appreciate the exchanges we've had both today and yesterday on Ukraine, on the Middle East, on South Asia, and the Indo-Pacific. They have brought out the significant convergences in our thinking. We spoke at some length on the threats to international peace and security that is posed by terrorism, including its cross-border practices, by violent extremism, radicalization, and fundamentalism. Their effects cannot be contained within a region, especially so when they're deeply connected to narcotics and illegal weapons trade and other forms of international crime. Since the epicenter is located so close to India, naturally, our experiences and insights are useful to others. With regard to the Ukraine conflict, let me underline that India remains deeply concerned. We sincerely believe that this is not the era of war. Differences must be settled on the negotiating table. It is imperative that there is a return to dialogue and diplomacy. Prolonged conflict will not serve the interests of any party. My Prime Minister has been in contact with the leaders of both nations, pressing our point of view in that regard. We are also increasingly anxious about the knock-on effects of the conflict in terms of accessibility and affordability of fuel, food, and fertilizers. This is a growing concern for the Global South. Austria is an important partner for India in the European Union at a time when we seek to upgrade our relationship. We appreciate its strong support for the negotiations underway on the FTA, the investment agreement, and the geographical indicators agreement. Their conclusion will obviously have a positive impact on our bilateral economic partnership as well. We also have a strong meeting of minds on the challenges confronting the international community, whether it is pandemics or climate change, terrorism or cybersecurity. Our interests are indeed very convergent. Conversations today have surely helped to bring the requisite segments of our system together in that regard. India, as the Minister noted, has just assumed the presidency of the G20. We have also completed our current tenure as a member of the UN Security Council. As a participant in many international organizations and initiatives, we appreciate the insights that Austria provides on so many issues. Working together more closely in the multilateral domain was one of the many understandings that the Foreign Minister and I reinforced today. Foreign Minister Schallenberg and I, as he pointed out, have met 5 times in the last year. I think at least I have taken a great shine to him. There should be proof of our determination as well to take ties to a higher level. We have the fullest support of our leaderships in that regard. And once again, let me thank him for the very warm welcome, for the productive discussions, and for charting out a pathway really to take our relationship to the next level. Thank you.
Thank you. I might add that we have afterwards a meeting with our Czech and Slovakian colleague. Yesterday you met the president of Bulgaria.
Indeed.
So your visit to Vienna also proves what I always say, that we are sort of a regional hub and you don't need to travel elsewhere, just come to Vienna.
Thank you, ministers. Are there any questions? Thomas Schmidt, bitte.
Thank you. Happy New Year, Minister.
Micro.
Thomas Schmidt, Austria Press Agency. As you have spoken about the war in Ukraine, a question to you both. Russia has discarded the most recent Ukrainian idea for a peace plan. Do you see, nevertheless, any increased willingness on both sides to engage in talks sooner or later? And more specifically to you, Minister Jaishankar, India is willing. India has stressed the importance of dialogue And there has been recently a phone call between President Zelensky and Prime Minister Modi. Could you a little bit elaborate the position of your country? Is India willing to engage in some sort of mediating role or facilitating role once the time has come for that? Thank you.
Should I?
Okay.
In my opening remarks, I have laid out very clearly our position, which is that there has to be a return to dialogue and diplomacy. Now, since the conflict started in February, obviously the immediate pressures and anxieties have changed with the passage of time. In the initial weeks, a lot of that was centered for us around a very large number of Indian students that we had, more than 20,000 of them in Ukraine, and how to get them out of the conflict zone. And we did so, and we did so with also the support of all the neighbors of Ukraine. And that is also something which I would be expressing to the ministers of Czechia and Slovakia when I meet them. But what has happened now is at a big picture level, yes, we strongly press for negotiations and discussions. My prime ministers had a recent conversation not just with President Zelensky, also with President Putin. This is not the first conversations he has had. They've been talking from time to time. I myself have spoken again to foreign ministers Lavrov and Kuleba. Now, while the larger goal is being pressed, I think the Ukraine situation also produces specific problems which need priority addressing. One example of that was, the negotiations which preceded the Black Sea grain initiative. And at that time too, this was mainly led by the Secretary General of the UN and by Turkey. And we had done our bit, including at Bali, to be supportive of that and to address some specific concerns which at that time were still open. Another issue which had come up was regarding the safety of the nuclear power plant in Zaporizhzhia. So that too has been a subject where we have tried to do whatever is within our capabilities to create more stability. And I will be meeting Mr. Grossi tomorrow at IAEA headquarters. So the point which I want to make is, yes, I think there is today very strong global sentiment for ending this conflict, for getting back to negotiations. As I said, a large part of the developing world is feeling very, very painfully the escalation of prices of fuel, food, and fertilizer. So we articulate that sentiment, but also as today G20 president, I think we have a responsibility of trying to channel and capture global views in this regard and see how we can take that forward in a positive direction.
May I add, from my perspective, and I said so repeatedly, it's a question of common sense, it's a question of logic.